Hey everyone, Sean here, and today in this video I wanted to sit down and talk about my first impressions and thoughts about Honkai Star Rail, the latest, definitely, but greatest. That is definitely debatable, but for right now, like my overall impressions, TLDR, are looking pretty positive. And I would like to talk about the things that I like about and a few things I don't like about so far, anyway, and everything in between. And I'll probably likely make a lot of comparisons to Genshin Impact because this is a game made for Genshin Impact players or anyone who's in the sort of Hoyoverse economy, so to say. If you're familiar with MiHoYo or Hoyoverse at this point, this definitely is a game that will be more up your alley right off the bat. So, but let's go over it, and don't forget to like and subscribe and all that fun stuff. Really appreciate it, guys. So, yes, this game has just come out, and I've been playing it for about definitely several hours. I'm ranked 22 at this point. I just hit 22 last night as of this recording, and my equilibrium right now is just 1, which means in Genshin terms, world level 1. You start off at 0, and then right now I'm at 1. So what I like about the game right off the bat is the setting, the world, the aesthetics and everything. I mean, I think it looks clean. It definitely looks very stylized towards the anime sort of style that we've known from at least Honkai Impact 3rd, going to Genshin Impact, and now going to here. It definitely retains that anime cell shading style. Although I think this time around, I think this is probably the best looking game so far. Though I have not played Third Impact 3rd, I am familiar with the characters and stuff like that. But going into Star Rail, this could just be me, but I think this is probably the best looking game Hoyoverse has put out thus far. While it's not to say that Genshin Impact is looking bad or anything like that, it definitely looks, a little older, and there are just like the in-betweens that kind of make Star Rail, come out on top in a way. But Genshin Impact still is beautiful in its own right. The environments are very beautiful, which makes sense because it is an open world game, while Star Rail, maybe you could argue that the environments don't look as good just because it's a more of a level based thing, and you just go from level to level rather than just seamlessly go across the land and stuff like that, like in Genshin. So aesthetically, though, point being, it does look pretty good, especially if you look at the characters. The character designs are consistent throughout the impacts, right? And then you have the Star Rail now. I always like the sort of character designs from Hoyo, up to this point. Looking at the third, Impact 3rd, Genshin Impact, of course, and then here, like I said, it's been pretty consistent and is still looking pretty good for character designs thus far, anyway. So I definitely look forward to more of what Star Rail has to offer. It's a mixture of like space, and then you have the clothes that reflect on each world so far. I mean, you have you have the world that looks more like your European setting, right? And then you have, of course, you're gonna be going to the world that looks a little more Chinese, right? Ish, and that's kind of like a repeat of funny enough of Genshin, where you had a European setting, Mondstadt, and then you go to Liyue, which of course borrows a lot of Chinese elements. If not, it is kind of China. It is pretty much Chinese, but nonetheless, though, I mean that's the kind of rhythm you'll find familiar with. And like I said, this game is made for Genshin Impact players, more or less, right? And then not only you see a lot of references or connections with those aesthetics, but you're gonna find the interface and stuff like that quite familiar. The character layout and everything, how your information is distributed and everything, very very familiar looking, and yet I think Star Rail does a lot of things better this time around, just because it is the latest and the new hotness. It's the new updated toy, so to say, and it does have all the sort of more updated features. It's like comparing cars, right? You have this BMW from 2018, but then you dive into a BMW from 2020. Of course, it's gonna have updated features that you'll like to see in the 2020 model versus a 2018 BMW model. But I mean, the 2018 BMW model is still fun to drive, and it's not to take away from that. But those little things do add up to a more smoother, better experience overall as you're going along with the ride, literally, for Star Rail. What makes things smooth in Star Rail is something like quests. The way you go about quests is actually really cool. I mean, you can instantly just hit a button, and then you can pretty much like go exactly to that quest point, and then you just like go to the nearest to the nearest teleport point, and then you can just go right there, like bam, instantly. Now, maybe Genshin allows that, but this was a feature that was like something you had to wait for a long time, if I'm correct. But it's definitely here right off the bat. Star Rail comes with those sort of updated features right off the bat, so you definitely don't have to worry about those little nuances and those subtle things that kind of like hinder that smoothness, right, of going from quest to quest, so to say. So things like that I do like from Star Rail and stuff like that, of course. So far the characters are good. I mean, before I forget, of course, let's talk about the personalities so far. I mean, I think they're pretty colorful. They kind of do have their distinctions. You have like the sort of bubbly girl with March 7th, and then you have the more kind of like the in between with Asta, right? She is like hardworking, but at the same time, kind of shows off some bubbliness here and there a little bit. And then you have a character like Arlen, who's like very a little more disciplined, right? And kind of socially aloof in a way, and then so on and so forth. You kind of have like some characters like Don Hang, who is like that too, but is also a different person altogether in comparison to Arlen and stuff like that. And then you have Himiko, and so on and so forth. A number of characters do have are pretty distinct, just like with Genshin and stuff like that. And you could say that yes, they follow like the tropes of anime and stuff like that. I think the storytelling does kind of give off the similar vibes as well, and that is something that you will find at home pretty much. If you do like the characters from the Hoyo verse, literally, then you'll definitely find yourself at home in that regard, as well. And so that is also something to praise about when it comes to Star Rail. There are other sort of aesthetics and stuff like that I do like, with the the music and all the thing, the presentation, right? Especially when you start the game, where you see the train, and then you see the different angle of the train, and then it warps you to essentially the main game, which is a nice way to sort of like take you into the game and essentially like get you going, right? Every day, if you want to play this every day. So that's actually kind of cool. It's the really subtle things that really, again, do add up on this game. And so other things, I wanted to at least mention the music, right? The music is very just fantastic. I think it already kind of like is on par. I mean, I don't think I should even compare it. I mean, it's the same, could be the same staff, but I think overall it holds up, and I think it'll definitely kind of be on par with the rest of the Hoyle roster when it comes to music. So that of itself is another thing to kind of check off in the positive side of things. So a number of good positives so far, and of course, the big positive here, of course, is the combat for me anyway. I do come from a more of a turn-based background. I do like my turn-based games, like tactical RPGs and your classic JRPGs and stuff like that. I really do like those type of stuff. As even as a kid, of course, right? And I do, of course, that doesn't take away from my enthusiasm for real-time combat. I've played Tales of anything, right? The Tales of series, so which also features real-time combat, as a JRPG. So there are two sides of that, and I think this one definitely celebrates the turn-based aspect of things. I think this might be the first turn-based game for Hoyoverse. I could be wrong, but it definitely is turn-based here for sure. So for those who are going in thinking that this is a just another action, real-time action game, yeah, you definitely have another thing coming, because this is definitely essentially a turn-based game. No doubt about it. But there are actually some unique caveats about this game that I wanted to point out right away, and it's involving with the ultimates, right? There are what makes this turn-based game unique in comparison to other turn-based games that I've encountered is the ultimates, not of itself, but how you deliver them. And so there are times where you have just enough energy, right, to just a sliver of energy left to fully recharge your ultimate, just like in your other Hoyoverse games. But this one, as a turn-based RPG, is a little unique because you can essentially combo your basic attack or skill into your ultimate on your same turn before your enemy can attack. So that could make a difference between getting hit by the fully maximum hit or damage by the enemy, or you can essentially debuff them on that the turn before them, right? So ultimates can activate whether it's your turn or the enemy's turn. But if you just activate it just without any thought, it will activate after the enemy's turn, and then it goes to your ultimate, and then whoever else's turn within the action order, or turn or the timeline, or whatever you want to call it. So there are times where you do want to be a little more active, right? You want to definitely be paying attention to that on your screen, because it does make a difference, right? So there's a difference, when especially you have someone like March 7th who can freeze people, and then if they're frozen, they can't attack, right? So that takes away their turn, and that makes a huge difference in the harder battles, right? They can hit hard, and in the next hit, your one of your characters could be dead. So those differences can be key to your victory. So being able to activate your ultimate within that same window of your turn right before the enemy can all make the difference. So it actually does feel more of a active turn-based JRPG than your typical JRPG where or a turn-based RPG where you kind of just wait for the enemy's turn and then you just attack, right? Typically. So things like that, to me anyway, does make Star Rail stand out a bit, and I do like that aspect of it. It just really makes things a little more active. You have to pay more attention to it, and again, it makes a difference. So it definitely makes more fun out of a challenging thing, right? I mean, it rewards you for paying attention to a turn-based RPG. So I actually do like that system more ways than one. I wish like clicking on those logos or those glowing orbs would be easier. Like maybe the icons could be bigger or something like that. Because there are times where I try to click on it in that instant, but I miss it, and then I miss my mark, and it can make things a little more difficult. I've had battles where it all make that it really makes that difference, and then the enemy can turn the tables on me. When I could have turn the tables on them when it was like looking rough for my side of things anyway. So it does definitely make a difference though. So with the ultimates, you do want to pay attention to. They are pretty important of when you activate them and such like that. So it gives a sense, more of a sense of strategy, definitely, um, than other turn-based stuff. So the combat of itself, while on the surface looks like a just any other turn-based game, you definitely want to play it to experience the sort of activeness that you could, partake for Star Rail. So definitely the combat here is a highlight, despite being turn-based, where it looks old school. It looks more primitive or archaic or old, so to say. While the real-time combat stuff is more modern and stuff like that. So I do understand that, but I think turn-based stuff still has its place, and it just brings out a different kind of strategy than real-time stuff. Real-time stuff could be easier because you have a dodge button and you can dodge anytime you want, whereas turn-based stuff requires you to set up different status buffs and stuff like that for your characters to survive and stuff like that. You have to set things up, and then sometimes you do want to hope to have the better speed or better avoid or whatever it is, evasion, right, to quote unquote dodge the attacks during those turns. So you definitely want to ensure that your stats and stuff like that are good, and have characters who can enhance that as well. So that's why you have buffers and all that stuff. And speaking of which, there are characters, or the character roles are kind of like definitely a highlight as well. I mean, you do have familiar elements, but they are put into like different terms, right? So you have different characters come in different paths. And so let's say like your main character, right? Your main character is takes the path of destruction, which means they have some survivability, but also dish out damage, right? So they're kind of like the bruiser of the crew. Path of abundance is a fancy word for healing. Path of I think it was harmony, supports your crew. So like more attack, more defense, more speed, that type of stuff. So different paths equal to different job roles and so on and so forth. And the mechanics behind each character are pretty fun so far. You can stack up different stats and stuff like that, or stack up more of the same stat, like attack, for example. I mean, you have someone like Asta, who is a supporter, and of course, the more opponents she attacks, the more stacks that she can accumulate to essentially give an attack buff for everyone on her team without having to take up a turn. While you have Ting Yung, who specializes in attack buffing a single person, but it's a big fat buff, right? Especially when her ultimate comes around, that's a bigger buff than anything, right? So it's a huge buff for the one DPS person you have on your team potentially, and then you have like a bunch of supports who can just essentially highlight your one DPS potentially, right? So that could be a ideal maybe build for you, or you can definitely have different team compositions in mind that can synchronize with each other and stuff like that. There is that sense of synchronization with these different character mechanics and stuff like that. And like you can have a burning team, you have a shock team, you can have a freeze team and such like that. So that could also bring in the fun when it comes to that aspect of things for the gameplay. So there are different mechanics which each character has. So I do look forward to different characters who will bring something to the table, especially as a turn-based RPG. I mean, it definitely, I feel like they're gonna have to be more creative to bring something to the table for us to pull on and stuff like that as a gacha RPG. Let's not forget that all these games are gacha. Let's remember that. So now, I guess speaking of gacha, I guess I'll bring this up now. It is a gacha, right? So you do have to be careful of how you approach it, right? Because it's all about spending your currency, your most precious currency, which is the gems, right? And these gems are the only way, besides tickets, to get these characters. And these characters, of course, are key to making your combat experience a lot smoother, right? Especially if you pull for the right character. Now, with Star Rail, they do offer quite a bit of characters right off the bat, and they give you events, beginner events, that if you join now, of course, you'll get these characters and stuff like that. I don't know if it's like limited time, but if you join within this window, you'll definitely get them for sure as you're playing along. And they already offer way more characters in here off the start than Genshin, for example. I don't know what's with Genshin. I don't want to rant about it too long, but they've been very neglected and just like very conservative about giving out free summons and stuff like that. But here, if you like free summons, this is definitely the one, because they're already giving out a free 10 summon very soon, if not now, as this video comes out, right? So within the very soon kind of window, they're already giving out some 10 summons, right? Like nothing. Like this is even the anniversary, and already we're getting that much more summons than Genshin has within the year, or after a year even. So that of itself is also a highlight for Star Rail, but also a detriment even more for Genshin, unfortunately. But back on the gacha, one of the important things, of course, is the pity system. It does carry over here from Genshin, so if you're familiar with the Genshin pity system, you're definitely getting it here, for sure. You'll recognize how it works. Basically, if you do the event banner stuff, all the pity will carry over to one another, right? And then, of course, same with the story banner. Of course, the pity will continuously go on. And I think your first time, though, if you summon 300 times, you'll be able to pick your 5-star, which is actually really nice, because I do have one in mind, which is Bronya. She is a great support for the team and stuff like that, which was not a thing in Genshin. It was very bare bones when it comes to that stuff. Very, very not generous with that stuff. But here, they're pretty generous about that in comparison. So that's pretty nice. They do have a discount banner where after you summon 50 times at a discount rate, you can get your first 5-star as well. So you're going to get 5 stars along the way as you play along, which is, again, pretty nice. Of course, you can wail on it and get the 300 pity pretty fast if you're willing to wail on it. I mean, that is your choice, but be careful about it, because this is a gacha game, of course. It really plays around with that psychology and stuff like that, your desire. Definitely, you do want to be careful about that. So, that is something to consider. But, like myself, I will probably dive into the battle pass here, as well as the $5 deal, where you get gems over time instead of like at once. But it's still like 3,000 gems, just like the one in Genshin. 3,000 gems for $5, which is a great deal over time, right? So that's pretty nice to see. And you can do some, free summons, or not free summons, but like just, summons here and there to build up your pity to get the character you want. So like, or eventually, I guess. So overall, the gacha here, it's more or less the same. But I feel like this one's going to have very generous like free summons throughout its time, because they're already doing that much for the launch week. It's crazy. It's been so successful with its launch that they're just like, hey, we're going to give you free 10 summons. But Genshin was also very successful during its launch, but we didn't get anything. It's so strange. It really becomes more apparent of how just dry Genshin is when it comes to that sort of generosity. So that is something to take into consideration. If you feel like you want to be, given something, maybe this is the game for you. And then for Genshin, you just gotta play it for the open world aspect of things, and kind of don't look back on the gacha too much. But it is to say that here, if you like free stuff, given free stuff, that sort of sense, right, that feel, this definitely will be the game, I feel, for you. So the gacha here overall probably better because they're just gonna give you free stuff, unlike Genshin, for example, right? And more so, even more so, right? Not to bash on Genshin further, but it seems like it already has more combat content right off the bat with Star Rail than Genshin, and you could and people there are people in my circle, or there's somebody in my circle arguing that, oh, Star Rail is a turn-based game, so it's easier to develop, but you have to remember that Genshin already has these modes in the form of limited time events for combat, but they just don't choose to put them as permanent modes. Why not, right? They've already put their time into it, and then only for it to be limited time, right? So I don't know if that argument really holds up too much. Like, oh yeah, on the surface level, okay, yeah, that's true. But if you think about it, right? Genshin already has it there. It's such a popular game. Why not update it permanently in those aspects? Meanwhile, Genshin updates the teapot. They update the TCG like nothing. Like, you know what I mean? So that's pretty much another thing about Genshin, that's apparent in comparison to Star Rail. Now, when it comes to, let's say, back on the characters again, the balancing, right? So far, I feel like each character do have a reason to be there, right? In terms of like gameplay, tier lists, and stuff like that. It is too early to say. Maybe I'll make a tier list, like an early tier list, but like, there are characters who kind of need help, but overall, I think, there are more characters who have the kit or means to help you get through the game, smoothly. Of course, the five stars are powerful, but there are some 5 stars that could use some tinkering to justify the expense, right? But otherwise, the 4 stars, yeah, they're 4 stars. There are some of them who aren't perfect. But other than that, they all kind of have like a sense of reason to be there-ish for the most part. I could be wrong on that because I don't have all the characters, of course. But, they do have a place, and I think, they have at least the fun factor to be in there, right? So, and for those who are curious, I did get my first 5-star, which is Clara. Clara is pretty powerful as a physical damage dealer who can counter and deal damage during the enemy's turn, which is actually awesome. So I'm going to definitely put in my resources to her more, and she'll definitely be my best physical damage dealer on the roster, for sure, because of the power and potential that she has as a counter-based physical attacker. So that's pretty cool. I actually do like Clara and Savarog. I think Savarog was like the real cool factor. I was like, ooh, I wouldn't mind getting Clara. And funny enough, when I did my discount banner, I got Clara. So that's actually pretty funny. So yeah. Oh yeah, I forgot to talk about the elements, right? I almost forgot. So Genshin, like you come to know about the reaction-based combat, right? With vaporize and melt, overload, so on and so forth. Here, not so much. That doesn't happen. You don't really have reactions here. You're not gonna see, oh, overload, oh, this and this and that. But there is a sense of elements being utilized, of course, but it's more on weaknesses, right, towards the enemy. I don't think your characters do have an elemental weakness, but you definitely want to still be careful and be mindful about your offense, of course. So you definitely want to bring the right elements to the fight, because otherwise the enemies are going to be a lot harder to kill because of the breaking feature. So breaking enemies is very important, which only happens when they're hit by the weaknesses. So it's like indicated on top of their HUD or whatever, their health. I don't think there's a real like sense of like, oh, wind is weak to this, oh, fire is weak to this, sort of thing. But because enemies do have multiple weaknesses, but there are times where you're gonna miss out on some of those elements because of how you build your team, or you didn't know about this going in, so you want to restart your game or restart your fight with a different team, which you could do that, which is actually kind of nice. But you do have to start over if you're not, if you want to, if you go in and then you're just like, you have to start over. But if you do it early on, then it's fine. Anyways, there is a sense still of elemental synchronization, like I said early on, because of the, you could build the burning team, you could build a freezing team, you could build a maybe a physical damage dealing team. They all have their place. Fire brings burning, ice or frost or ice brings freezing and coldness, right, or freeze damage. And then electro has shock, and then wind has wind damage, right? They all have some sort of dot or damage over time effect, along with physical. Physical also brings bleed, which is their version of dots. And then you have essentially the dark and light elements. So you have quantum, which is dark kind of, and then you have imaginary, which is the light. So I'm not sure what those two play really, but they do have a reason to be there. I'm sure. I just barely got I think it was Jing Kui was she's the gambling girl with the mahjong pieces, and she's pretty cool. You do have to make sure your action points are full when you play around with her, because she plays on having to match all her mahjong pieces in order for her to dish out big damage, which I forgot to talk about, which is action points. Yes, action points definitely do pretty much are kind of like your turns almost, right? In a way, like it's like that's like your MP, so to say. And each special attack or action take up an action point, and there are ways to regenerate action points with unique characters. So there could be a character that just recycles action points like crazy, and those are going to be like 5 stars, of course. That's going to be pretty important in the future. But for right now, though, that's not the case here, I don't think, anyway. They could be cards, which that is also another thing to talk about. There are cards in the game that come in the form of light cones. They're essentially the weapons, if you want to compare it to Genshin. So you're going to have banners with light cones. Don't stay away from that. It's a trap. Just like a weapon banner, don't stay away from that. It's a trap. Unless you have all the characters that you want, then you can go dive into light cones, because they are helpful, right? But if you want to have the fun, characters is always the way to go. So if there is a situation where you really don't care about the characters that are coming up, okay, maybe you can go dive into the light cones, right, to enhance the teams that you already have. So essentially, they are the weapons, right? They come with flat stats, and then you have the effect or passive that will make or break the game, potentially. Pretty much like one of the 4 stars is like very powerful, which is called Dance Dance Dance, I believe. It's just like it's an advanced forward card, essentially, which it's a fancy term of, essentially pretty much like having your turn come up quicker, right? So it's not like speed. It's just instant. It just instantly brings you forward a little more than others, I believe. So there are still things I'm learning about at this point. Like I said, I'm level 22 on the rank, and then equilibrium is still 1, so I'm still kind of like in the maybe a big tadpole, but I'm still in this like small little pond, so to say. So yeah, definitely something to so there are things for me to still take in and learn about. Of course, you have relics. They're kind of like artifacts, so you'll know about that. They come with different stats. You'll have to go to the RNG, just like with artifacts in Genshin. Same old, right? So, Point being, though, I think overall, I think that kind of sums things up. I don't want to make this too long of a video. It's already been like over 30 minutes, I believe. So overall, I think this is a pretty fun game. The story is pretty fun so far. Although there are like moments where you do feel like it does drag on a little bit, but that's kind of like an anime thing. Not trying to excuse it too much, but you know, if you're familiar with anime, you'll be familiar with this sort of storytelling. But I think it is interesting. It is planting seeds for some things very interesting for the lore to really evolve, just like with Genshin and stuff like that. So, you know, it is Hoyoverse. They kind of like to tease around and slow burn things, and then it'll bloom eventually. So, I've yet to, you know, go to the Chinese side of things, right? The Chinese themed world just yet. So, I'll definitely want to get there. There are cool looking characters to see, and of course, there are going to be cool characters to pull for. So, it definitely is still. I mean, overall, it is a fun experience so far, and I definitely do look forward to playing more of this game, along with Genshin. Hopefully, you know, when Genshin is dry, this is something for me to play. So, I think it is worth giving a try. Not that this video is sponsored or anything like that, and you know, I just want to play more of it. So it's pretty fun. I'm glad that this game is turning out like this at the moment. Hopefully, the future of this game will be good, and I definitely look forward more to it. Especially with the events coming up, new banners, and more story to unfold. So that's pretty much it. That's my first impressions so far. I'll probably do like a full review on it once I'm, you know, done with the two worlds and stuff like that. Maybe I'll do it then. But that is pretty much it for this video on my first impressions and stuff like that. If you have any questions or comments about Star Rail, leave it down below. I would like to take a look at them and try to do my best to answer them, especially with the banners. If you have any questions about the banners, I'll try to definitely do my best to answer them. And yeah, and don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps out, and I do appreciate it. So thank you very much, and hope to see you all in the next one. Sean out.